Listen closely to what federal judge Richard Berman won't tolerate anymore. In just 3 words, immediate arrest threatened, followed by a December 20th deadline that's now just days away. FBI Director Kash Patel's systematic obstruction of court-ordered Epstein file releases would face the ultimate consequence. Federal marshals waiting to take him into custody if he continues defying judicial authority. Patel didn't expect a federal judge to state publicly that if you go against this order, you're looking at immediate arrest, no trial, no hearing, just custody until you comply. Judge Berman didn't expect to have to threaten the FBI director with criminal contempt after months of Patel hiding documents about Trump's Epstein connections behind claims of privilege that 3 separate federal courts had already rejected. What did the December 17th hearing reveal about how Patel's protection of Trump had pushed the federal judiciary to the breaking point where even the FBI director could be jailed for obstruction of justice? December 17th, 2025, 2:47 p. Federal District Court, Washington, D.C. Judge Richard Berman presided over what would become the most extraordinary contempt hearing in modern American history, a federal judge preparing to jail the sitting FBI director for refusing to comply with court orders to release documents about the Jeffrey Epstein investigation and Trump's connections to the convicted sex trafficker. FBI Director Kash Patel sat at the defense table with his legal team, projecting the same bureaucratic confidence he had deployed throughout months of congressional testimony. His strategy had been consistent: claim every document was either classified, privileged, or subject to ongoing investigation restrictions. But federal judges aren't congressmen. They have enforcement power that transcends political theater. Director Patel, Judge Berman began, his voice carrying the controlled fury of someone who had exhausted patience months ago. We are here today because you have repeatedly refused to comply with this court's orders to produce documents subpoenaed by Congress and requested under FOIA regarding FBI investigations into Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. The judge held up a thick file. This court has issued 4 separate orders over the past 6 months directing you to release these materials. You have defied every single one with claims of privilege that 3 separate federal courts, including the D.C. Circuit, have explicitly rejected. So, I'm going to ask you directly, do you intend to comply with this court's orders? Patel's attorney stood. Your Honor, the FBI continues to maintain that certain materials are protected by attorney-client privilege, executive privilege, and ongoing investigation confidentiality. Counsel, sit down. Judge Berman commanded. I didn't ask you. I asked Director Patel, and I'm asking specifically about documents that courts have already ruled are not privileged, not classified, and not subject to exemptions. Director Patel, will you comply? At 2:49 p.m., it's exactly 2 minutes into the hearing, Patel made the decision that would put him on a collision course with federal incarceration. Your Honor, the FBI has serious concerns about releasing materials that could compromise national security and ongoing investigative methods. We believe these documents should remain. That's not an answer to my question. Judge Berman interrupted, his voice now carrying unmistakable warning. Yes or no? Will you comply with this court's order to produce the subpoenaed documents? Patel hesitated, glancing at his legal team. Then he gave the answer that would trigger the contempt process. Your Honor, we believe additional review is necessary before. Stop right there. Judge Berman said, his tone now ice cold. Director Patel, I want to make something crystal clear to you. This court has reviewed your claims of privilege exhaustively. 3 federal courts have rejected them. The documents in question are not classified. The intelligence community has confirmed that they are not subject to attorney-client privilege. The privilege log you submitted was deficient and failed to establish any valid claim. They are not protected by executive privilege. The Supreme Court settled that question in the United States via Nixon. The judge leaned forward. So, when I ask if you will comply with this court's order, what I'm actually asking is, are you choosing to defy the constitutional authority of the federal judiciary? Because that is contempt of court, and contempt carries immediate consequences. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Every reporter present understood they were witnessing an unprecedented confrontation between judicial authority and executive branch obstruction. Your Honor, Patel's attorney tried again. We respectfully request additional time to additional time. Judge Berman's voice rose. You've had 6 months. This court gave you 30 days after the first order, then 60 days after the second order, then 90 days after the third order. You have used every single extension to file more motions, make more privilege claims, and create more delay. The time for extensions is over. Then Judge Berman delivered the ultimatum that would dominate news coverage for the next 3 days. Director Patel, I am giving you a final deadline. You will produce all court-ordered documents in full and unredacted by December 20th at 5 p. That is 3 days from now. If you fail to comply, I will issue a warrant for your immediate arrest on criminal contempt charges. The word arrest sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Federal judges threatening immediate arrest for contempt was rare. Threatening the FBI director with arrest was unprecedented. Your Honor, Patel's attorney objected, surely the court wouldn't. Oh, I absolutely would, Judge Berman said with devastating clarity. And let me explain exactly what will happen if Director Patel continues this obstruction. On December 20th at 50:01 p, if those documents have not been delivered to this court in full compliance with my orders, I will sign an arrest warrant. Federal marshals will take Director Patel into custody immediately. He will be held in federal detention until such time as he purges his contempt by complying with this court's orders. The judge paused, ensuring every word was understood. There is no middle ground here, Director Patel. Either you comply with constitutional authority or you go to jail. Those are your only two options. Patel's face had gone pale. The confident bureaucrat, who had spent months deflecting congressional questions and hiding behind privilege claims, was now facing a federal judge who had the power to actually enforce consequences. Your Honor, with respect, the FBI director has significant responsibilities that would make detention highly disruptive, his attorney tried. Then I suggest he comply with my order. Judge Berman replied coldly, the FBI director is not above the law. He is not exempt from constitutional requirements, and he does not get to decide which court orders he will follow and which he will ignore based on political convenience. The judge continued with the legal framework that made his threat not just credible, but virtually unstoppable. This court is prepared to issue criminal contempt charges under 18 U.S. Code Section 4001. Criminal contempt allows for immediate arrest and detention without a hearing. Director Patel would be taken into custody by federal marshals and held until he agrees to comply. That's not a negotiation. That's not a threat. That's how contempt of court works. Then Judge Berman delivered the additional consequence that made compliance even more urgent. Furthermore, I am prepared to refer this matter to the relevant state bar associations for potential disbarment proceedings. Director Patel holds law licenses in multiple jurisdictions. Willful defiance of court orders is grounds for professional discipline, including disbarment. If he chooses to defy this court, he won't just lose his freedom temporarily. He could lose his law license permanently. The stakes were now existential. Comply or face arrest, detention, and career destruction. Your Honor, Patel finally spoke directly, his voice strained. The documents in question contain sensitive information about ongoing investigations. What ongoing investigations? Judge Berman interrupted sharply. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. The criminal investigation is closed. You keep claiming ongoing investigation privilege for an investigation that ended years ago. That's not a legal argument. That's obstruction. The judge pulled out another document. And let me address your other excuse. You claim these documents would compromise national security, but the Director of National Intelligence has submitted a declaration to this court stating unequivocally that none of the subpoenaed materials contain classified information. So that excuse is also false. What about the documents related to Trump specifically? A reporter from the gallery asked, immediately drawing a rebuke from the BAVE. But Judge Berman addressed it anyway. The court is aware that many of the withheld documents relate to FBI investigation of connections between former President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. The court is also aware that Director Patel has a documented pattern of protecting Trump from legal accountability, but those political considerations are irrelevant to this court's authority. The law applies equally regardless of whose potential misconduct is being investigated. Then the judge made the connection between Patel's document withholding and broader obstruction. This court notes that while Director Patel claims he cannot release Epstein investigation files, he has somehow found time to authorize the release of files targeting Trump's political opponents. That selective application of supposed privilege claims suggests these are not good faith legal arguments, but rather politically motivated obstruction. At 3:02 p.m., exactly 15 minutes into the hearing, Judge Berman delivered his final warning. Director Patel, you have 3 days, December 20th, 5 p. Every document ordered by this court delivered in full compliance. If you fail to meet that deadline, federal marshals will arrest you immediately. You will be held in federal detention until you comply. There will be no hearing. There will be no appeal before arrest. You will simply go to jail. The judge paused. And I want to be clear about something else. This deadline coincides with the court-ordered release of additional Epstein files on December 19th. If you are hoping that releasing some materials will satisfy this court's orders, you are mistaken. I want everything this court has ordered. Not selected documents, not redacted versions, everything. Your Honor, surely the court recognizes that the FBI director has constitutional authority over executive branch investigations. Patel's attorney tried one more deflection. The FBI director has no authority to defy court orders. Judge Berman cut him off. The Constitution is very clear about separation of powers and judicial authority. Director Patel can claim executive authority all he wants, but when a federal court issues a lawful order based on constitutional authority, he must comply. Period. The judge gathered his papers. This hearing is adjourned. Director Patel, you have your deadline. I suggest you use the next 3 days wisely because on December 20th at 5:01 p.m., you will either be in compliance or in custody. Those are your only options. The courtroom erupted as Judge Berman left the bench. Reporters rushed to file stories. Legal analysts began debating whether a federal judge could actually jail an FBI director. Constitutional scholars noted that yes, absolutely judges have contempt power over anyone who defies their orders. Within hours, the political implications began cascading. Democrats in Congress praised Judge Berman for holding Patel accountable. Republicans were divided, some defending Patel's supposed protection of classified information, others quietly acknowledging that defying court orders was indefensible regardless of political alignment. Most significantly, the December 20th deadline created a constitutional crisis timeline. In 3 days, either Patel would release documents potentially exposing Trump's Epstein connections, or the FBI director would be arrested and jailed, creating a leadership crisis at the nation's premier law enforcement agency. By evening, additional context emerged about what Patel had been hiding. The subpoena documents reportedly included FBI investigative files showing Trump's extensive social connections to Epstein, witness interviews describing Trump's presence at Epstein properties, and internal FBI communications about political pressure to downplay or terminate investigations involving Trump. Congressional sources revealed that Patel had specifically blocked release of documents showing FBI agents had recommended criminal investigation of Trump's connections to Epstein's trafficking operation. But that recommendation had been overruled after political intervention from Trump appointees. The December 19th Epstein file release, just 1 day before Patel's deadline, was expected to include victim testimony and flight logs that would make Patel's continued document withholding even more indefensible. Once the public saw what had already been released, the pressure to release everything remaining would become overwhelming. Legal experts noted the extraordinary nature of Judge Berman's threat. Federal judges rarely threaten immediate arrest for contempt, but when they do, they almost always follow through. The contempt power is one of the judiciary's most fundamental authorities. Without it, courts would be powerless to enforce their orders against defiant officials. What made this case unprecedented was the target. The FBI director is supposed to be the nation's chief federal law enforcement officer. Having that person jailed for defying judicial authority would be a catastrophic institutional crisis. But the alternative, allowing the FBI director to ignore court orders with impunity, would be even worse. effectively placing executive branch officials above the law. By December 18th, with just 2 days until the deadline, there was no indication Patel intended to comply. Sources close to the FBI director suggested he believed Trump would protect him through some combination of executive privilege assertion, pardon, or political pressure on the judiciary. But Judge Berman had made clear none of those options would prevent arrest. Executive privilege had been rejected. Pardons don't apply to civil contempt, and judges are constitutionally independent from political pressure. The countdown was on 48 hours until Patel either released documents exposing Trump's Epstein connections or became the first FBI director in American history to be jailed for contempt of court. What made the December 20th deadline particularly significant was its proximity to the December 19th Epstein file release. If those files proved explosive, containing victim testimony naming Trump and FBI evidence of criminal conduct, Patel's continued withholding would become politically untenable. The institutional implications extended beyond Patel's crisis. Jailing the FBI director would establish that no executive official could defy lawful court orders regardless of position. That precedent would reshape the balance between judiciary and executive branch. Judge Berman's willingness to jail Patel sent a message to other Trump officials.